Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Spellbinders, and this is all from the Justine Dvorak, what is it, farm, hold on, I'll get it. It's just the farm collection by Justine. And so I am using the press plates. This one is Daisy, and then the cow, like the Highland cow looking style, is Clover, and the sheep is Cotton Ball. And then there's also a hen and a rooster in Feathered Friends that I did not use. And there's another one that's like a scene. That one might be Farm Sweet Farm. I'll link them all below. So when these originally came out, Justine reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in doing an Instagram hop, and I was like, absolutely. And then they were so cute that even though, so I made Daisy here first, and that was my card for the Instagram hop, but then they were so adorable, I kept using them. And I wanted a way to kind of use them differently, and so I chose to use the regular butter press plates, as you can see here. I'm using the regular Hero Arts Intense Black ink because it's safe for alcohol markers, because I am going to do a combination of watercoloring and coloring with my Copic markers. So I'm getting them all kind of pressed down. I find this to be easiest. Instead of taping the corners on the front, I like to tape them behind. Now, I don't have to worry about any uneven pressure because I'm not pressing in either of the four corners, just in the center. But just know, if you choose to do this style of pressing, and you have that tape there and you're rolling over it, you can sometimes get a little bit of a deeper or darker impression where the tape is. But I want to be honest with you, I think these are amazing. I think if I was the person who had like that farmhouse kind of theme in my house, I would just leave them like this. I would matte them in black and frame them and just have them like in my kitchen or in my dining room, wherever. I think that they are so well done. But we are creating cards with them. And like I said, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I am going to watercolor them and their background first, and then we're going to be adding some alcohol markers on top of them. In addition to that, this one, Daisy, is just going to be used how she is. I'm not going to add anything to her. Because, well, I mean, they're all pretty adorable. You could use them exactly, how they come. But I am also going to combine them with some dyes to get a little bit of a different look. So here you see I'm putting down some water. I'm kind of making sure that there is a good amount of water on there. It should not be bubbled up, but you should definitely see a sheen when you are looking at it from the side and the light. And then I'm just mixing up some different colors. I am going to use pink, yellow, and green for this one. And I am, just kind of, there's not a right or a wrong way to do it. I'm putting down a light layer of pink, and then I often find doing some like spatters, like you see in the background, helps me to have a more organic background, just because sometimes my brain wants to like pair the things or makes the edges, look more symmetrical, and that's not the beauty of watercolor. So in order to kind of fight my natural feeling of making it even and balanced and all of those things, I do try to use the spatters to help kind of just put the paint where it wants to go. So the yellow and the pink mix very nicely. So I'm going to be, dropping in some yellow right over the pink. I'm letting them kind of mix and do their thing. And then I chose a yellow green, because it's going to work well with the yellow, and because it does have that little bit of yellow in it, it's less likely to make brown with the pink, because they are complementary colors. So I'm just, like I said, just dropping that in. I'm doing some spatters. Watercolor always dries back lighter than what it looks like when you're doing it. So make sure that you're kind of paying attention to that. Here I'm going back in and I'm adding additional pink so that there's, some stronger color in certain areas. But like I said, I am going to color over top of this, so I'm not too worried. I just want to have a really nice organic underpainting, basically. And then when I go in and color her, that background will fall into the background. So I do want to just mention, I did see today, well, it's actually started a couple of days ago, but it goes through May 8th. Spellbinders is actually having a buy one, get one free on their dies, which is insane. And it's only specific days. It's, so you have to get 2 participating items that are equal or lesser value, and then you'll get one of them free. So first of all, there's like 6 pages of stuff. So there's like tons of really good options. What I've used today, the mirrored arches and the holiday blooms are both in there. So essentially, I think they're both listed for like $29.99. You could get them both for $30, so $15 a piece. Now we are moving on to what is her name? Clover. I think it's Clover. And so for this one, because I am obsessed with, you guys know, matching my cards. My cards need to match when I'm taking pictures of them. So I'm using that same kind of pink and then also the green like I used before. But I think this time I'm also going to put in a little bit of teal because they're each going to have their own different kind of matte. And so for this one is going to be blue, I believe. And so I wanted to have a little bit of that in it as well. But there is no right or wrong here. So basically we're just putting down a sheet of water and then we are just tapping in some different colors that are going to help with our underpainting so that we get really good interest and shading and, different textures and stuff when we do our coloring. You could do a flat wash of one color if you wanted. I just find it to be a little bit more interesting when you do multiples. So now depending upon what colors you put on top of it is going to depend on how much of the background you see. Cotton Ball here definitely has the most background to be seen. Because I colored her white. So you definitely can see like the pinks and the teals and the, the colors that are underneath. You could make her a darker, like a gray or a brown, and that may, make it so you don't see as much as the underpainting if you don't like it. But I think it just adds a little bit of interest. So for this one, we did the pink and the yellow and I think it's like dark cyan, I think is what it is. But I knew that this one would be the lightest color and you'd be able to see all, the most of it. But I think adding the gray over top of it really does give it great dimension. And I'm not mad that you can see the underpainting. So once you are done randomly adding your inks to your Better Press images, and I am working on watercolor paper. I am not working on like the pure cotton paper that you would normally see with Spellbinders Better Press. I am just working on regular watercolor paper because I knew what I wanted to do. So here I am setting up to see which one is going to work, like which size is going to work best for cutting out my characters and their backgrounds. Let me just say, because I didn't address it before, my allergies are terrible today, so please excuse me. I'm trying my best not to sniffle in your ear, but I can't make any guarantees. So I had to pick a couple of different sizes because the cow here is wider than like the pig or the sheep. So that's no big deal. You can see it just means it fills up more of that shape. And then these are the holiday blooms. These are one of the ones that are on sale, and I am cutting them out of white cardstock. Yes, these are made for the holidays. No, this is not a holiday card. You can stretch your supplies to do basically whatever you would like to do. It doesn't, to me, like, unless you're specifically using like the pine or the pine cones or things like that are definitely winter, you can use them for any season. Like, they're just flowers. So for Cotton Ball here, like I said, I'm going to color her white. So I'm going in with some cool gray markers. I'm adding where I want the darkest shading to be. And so typically for the darkest shading, we're looking for any place 2 points meet or where one object lays on top of the other. And so what you see with the ears is the little flower crown kind of hangs over the top of her head and the top of her ears. When it comes to her face, there is, like there's some shapes drawn in for the like under the eyes, under the mouth, and then under the chin, like you're going to cast a shadow onto the lower body. I also did a little bit of the darkest color as the head comes into the body. And then I'm blending all of that out with the C3. So when I'm blending that out, I'm going right over the C5, and then I am just extending it a bit. For the actual body, I did, just pick some random spots here and there to kind of accentuate, to help make her look a little fuzzier. And then once I'm done with the C3, here we are, almost halfway through the C1 now. And this is really just to blend everything out, to make sure we don't have any like bold, sharp lines or anything like that. And right now she looks pretty gray, but once we start adding in the colors for like the flowers and things, it will get better. So don't mind that. I just cut out the nose. I totally apologize. The 2 colors for the nose, and then I did her eyes blue. And then for the flowers, I kind of did the same, like I kept it, with the same colors that I was going to use in the other ones, the blues, the pinks, the yellows, that kind of thing. I'm not being overly concerned about adding shading to the Better Press image as far as like the florals go, because I know I'm going to add my own florals over top. So with this one in particular, I'm really just blocking in the color so that it's not a stark white underneath my die cuts. It just, I needed some color to kind of be there, like peeking out, but not a ton of dimension, because you're not even going to be able to see all of it. So what were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about the dies. So with this buy one, get one sale, like they have a ton of really great stuff on there that you can pick up. But here is what I go for when I see a sale like this. I immediately go for the like the kind of like infinity dies, the stacked ones, like these mirrored arches, where I'm going to get, 8 or 9 of the same shape together, because those are normally pretty pricey. And they're not, I don't want to say they're not fun. They're not like the most fun, but they're kind of necessities, right? To help us kind of stretch our other supplies that are a lot of fun. So I always look for them on sale, because like I said, so if they're $30 a piece, that's a pretty, you know what I mean? Like that's a pretty decent price for what we're looking at for dies right now. But then if I want like the notched, the mirror, let's say this one is the mirrored arches, and then I want the emerald cut rectangles or the notched rectangles or whatever. Like then I'm getting 2 sets that have multiple dies in them for $15 a piece, which is the same as what you would pay for like a regular size stamp set. So that is a really good deal. So anyway, that's what I look for. But anywho, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it below. And it goes until the 8th. So now let's get on to this cow. So I decided I was going to color the cow brown because it kind of has that like more shaggy look like you do see with the Highland cows. Now it doesn't have the hair, like the cap of hair on top. And I don't know if that's because it has its feathers or what. I do think that you could probably mix up the colors for the cow and have it still look fairly realistic. But I like brown and blue together. And I already knew that I was going to do the blue for the background of this card. So I decided to go with the browns. I chose the E55 family, where lots of shadows behind the snout to help that snout really kind of pop out forward, and lots of shadows underneath the head and the chin where the body is, to really push the head forward. Then other than that, when I'm adding the shadows, like you can see for the eyes, I'm kind of extending that up there. And that's just to make sure that they don't get like overly dark, that we can still see the eyeballs while still creating, a pretty good amount of dimension. I was really, really happy with the way that our little cow came out. She is darling. And then here, because there's no end to the body, I just kind of took the lightest color, went over that, and just extended it out. And then it just kind of like fades off. So for the flowers, again, here, I felt like her eyes needed a little bit of darkening, but I was too scared to do it with like a black, so I did go in with one of the darker grays. That is a trick that you can also use. For the nose, I wanted the nose to have some shading, but I also wanted it to still read as a nose. So I didn't go black. I went with a C9 and then a C7, and then I left like this sliver across the top as my highlight that I went in with my C5. So that once it dries, it's always going to be darker when you first put it down, but once it dries, you can really see that lighter color along like the top of the nose. For the flowers on top of the cow's head, again, I just filled them in. I didn't really do any shading because, again, we're going to add flowers. And here they are, the flowers making their appearance. So, I'm just going to go in. I cut all of mine out of white because I find it to be easiest, but I'm just going to go in and add some shading with the colors that we've already seen. So these are going to be a little bit more in depth than the coloring that we did on the flowers, like where we just, filled them in and then moved on. These are definitely going to be more like your 3 or 4 color blends. And I did go with that yellow green that we have been, seeing throughout the rest of the video. Also the pinks, and it's not as bright. I went with the is it the R80 family or RV80? I think it's the R80. And that's a little bit more subdued. So I did go with those for the pinks. And then the same thing with the blues. Like the blues are a little bit more pale, along the lines of a true blue versus, like the sky blue I would usually do that's kind of bright and bold. I kept my yellow greens the same, because those are my favorite yellow greens. I do have ones that are a little bit more muted, but I did keep these on the brighter side. So for the leaves, we just added shading kind of from the base up, and then there's a couple of different flowers in here. Since they do have like centers that you can put in there, you wouldn't have to be overly worried about that. I just added my darkest color from the center out, and these are going to be like a golden yellow color. So the darkest color, then the mid-tone, then the lighter mid-tone, and very little on the outside edge is that YO2. Now remember, I know these look dark, but we're going to have a center that we kind of put in there, that will kind of like draw the eye away from like all the darkness. Like, I know it seems silly because we're using like 2 or 3 colors on this little teeny tiny flower, but once they stack, like they do offer a lot more dimension. Here for this, I guess it might be a rose. I'm not sure. It's clearly a layered flower of some kind. There's 2 different layers. There's one that's solid, so you saw me just color that with the darkest color all the way through. And if you wanted to save your ink, you could cut that out of like a darker pink color of cardstock. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to follow all of these little cutouts and add a little bit of shading. Same thing with the smaller flower that's going to be in the like You see most of them with the sheep, with the cotton ball. But anyway, so these ones, I am then blending out that darker color with the mid-tone, and then, we'll just keep doing what we've been doing, which is the next lightest color, go over everything and extend that out. And then these will stack, not the littlest one, but these other two will stack right on top of each other. If you feel like your lightest color has bleached out your middle color a little too much, you can always go back in and add that back. And then that'll create that dimension there. And then that would be, just showing like an option for the center. So this is the actual center that I'm going to use for the flower. And I am using those same yellow golds that are just going to be repeating and a series of dots. That way it will look like it has some texture. So here you can see me with my little tweezers, and you'll see how that will sit there in the center. So we've done the yellow, we've done the pinks. Here's the blues. So we have a B21, a B24, and then the darkest color is a B97. That is a little more desaturated than usual, but if you go into the like B26, B28, B29, those are more royal blues, and I didn't want that. I wanted more of a kind of like stormy spring blue. So now, as you can see, I'm going through it, I'm coloring everything as we're going. These extra pieces, this is a different kind of flower, and this is the base for it. I did choose some darker greens. I think that it really helps to add a lot of interest when you are combining different colors of greenery, different colors of blossoms, really giving yourself the opportunity to, kind of mix it up and put different color palettes together. I definitely went with more of like a spring-y palette, and I made this quite some time ago. I made it quite some time ago. So anyway, here's Daisy. And so for Daisy, we are going to not add any flowers. We're just going to color her up with those same pink colors. And like I said, this is the R80s family. So where her ears are connected to her head, that's going to be a little bit darker. Behind her snout, darker. Inside her nostrils are going to be darker. And then adding a little bit of shadows where there's kind of lines indicated by the illustrator. And then we'll, do the mid-tone and the mid-tones and then the lightest color and blend those all out. So funny story, I if you guys watch my video, I have a toddler, and I don't wear a lot of makeup now that I work from home. It's pretty rare. After I was diagnosed with my skin cancer and had my surgery, my dermatologist was pretty adamant that I wear SPF every single day. Like, she's like, even if you're just running out for just a few minutes, like, you need to have on, you need to protect your skin. So I do try to be pretty good about that. And so the SPF I have is tinted. And when I put it on, because it's tinted, it makes my eyelashes look weird because it's too light. And so then I look like I already have no eyebrows because my eyebrows are very fair. And I'm not taking the time to do my eyebrows every day. Like, it ain't it. But I do typically, once I put on my SPF, like, I will just throw on some mascara so my eyelashes don't look crazy. And my daughter, the other day, I was giving her, I had some little like soundbite things that I had to do for an upcoming class that I'm teaching. And then, I had the release party, for honeybees. So I was like, okay, well, today's a good day to like get myself together. But so then when I was done, I was going down to my mom's. My mom has always been a night person, same as me. I do much better at night, not a morning person at all. So usually after the kids are in bed, I go down and visit with her while we do her nighttime meds, and then she'll stay up for a little bit and talk before her medication kicks in, and then she gets sleepy. So I was giving her a kiss goodnight. because I was going to go down to my parents, and she like pulls her head back and looks at me and goes, "Mommy, did you paint your eyelashes today?" Isn't that adorable? That's what she calls it when I put mascara on, painting my eyelashes, which is 100% accurate and also very adorable. Like the cutest way to describe putting on mascara. So the flowers, we're doing the yellow, and then the green, we're doing the yellow greens. The shading doesn't change, even though it's not a die cut, it's a stamped image. We're adding that darker shading to where the petals are gathered in the center, and then getting lighter as we work out towards the tips. And everybody has like their, I don't know, like their go-to color combination, I think. That you're like, oh, I could tell by the colors, that's so-and-so's card. One of my go-tos, if you don't know already, is pink, yellow, and green. Like, there is nothing that you can't make beautiful with pink, yellow, and green. Like, it's just such a good combination. I don't know why, it just works really well. So that is the one that I went with when I was doing daisies here. And she is pressed a little cattywampus. And I will admit, when I first got my Better Press, like I didn't use it as much because I'm definitely like more of the like coloring with my markers versus having to watercolor it. Because of the ink that's used. But then once I did my little experiment to see what inks can be used, and realized that I could press with ink that is safe for alcohol markers, I do find myself being much more comfortable in using them, because then I can just use them like any other stamped image, which I appreciate. And so they're kind of like, they will stamp like a stamped image, they'll press like letterpress, they'll foil, like they're really good options, and they're almost as intricate as far as details as like red rubber. Like they're really, really intricate details that you can get into a Better Press image. I would love to maybe try to design some of these. I think it would be really fantastic. So here I'm going back in because I wanted to add in some extra shading. I just wasn't feeling like it had as much dimension as I wanted it to. And that's totally fine, because you don't have to just accept that your first try is your only try. You can always go back in there and try to add, something else to make it look more of the way that you want it to look. And I just felt she needed like a little extra dimension. So that's what I did. And then, I just went back through the same motions that we did earlier to get those things blended out. And then I was much happier with the level of dimension we were able to achieve. So don't count yourself out. So the other most adorable thing my daughter has started doing, and I don't know if it's from listening to us talk, if you are married, you could probably understand this type of story. So my husband's sole purpose in life is to love and protect and provide for his family and annoy his wife forever and ever. I missed that part in our vows where he agreed to do that. I'm not sure where I missed that part, but it was surely in there, because that is what and it's not like he's being silly is what it is. So he's, poking and prodding and, saying things that, he knows at like certain words are like yicky and, things like that. He's just being a husband, just doing what he does. And my daughter must have been listening for a really long time, because he said something to me the other day and I don't even remember what it was. And I turned around and looked at him, and before I could say anything, little jelly bean goes, "Eric," like, and then we both busted out laughing because like her comedic timing was perfection. It was so funny. So now I don't know how she knows when to say it, but she said it like 2 or 3 times now, and she's pretty spot on. Now, of course, obviously, we tell her, like, that's daddy and you don't call him Eric and stuff. But you know how kids are. Once they know something is funny, they are just going to ride that wave, right? And it is funny. I won't deny her that. It is funny. So here I've used the Dahlia cardstock, and I have mounted that onto a craft card base. I think it's Nina Desert Storm. And then I did the die cut. I did the same die cut. I just used a slightly smaller one out of the foam, so that way it would be popped up and I wouldn't have to worry about, creating the dimension with a bunch of tape. I just die cut out that, that pop-up foam, and it works beautifully to do that. So I will say it looks more like a picture on the wall, like with this style. The other two, I popped up the whole thing instead of popping up just the colored panel. I have regrets about that, but I forgot that I had made this, because I made this one first, so I had forgot that I had made it that way. So then the sentiment, the Farm Sweet Farm, I am going to have to put some foam on either side of that because it is hanging over. So I just tucked the foam in there, and then I added some white highlights with a gel pen, and it felt like it needed a little bit more something. So in order to, and of course glitters. Of course. But in order to kind of tie in that gel pen and add a little extra frame detail, I took my white gel pen and I traced around the actual craft onto the Dahlia cardstock, and that white really does help it kind of pop forward. And so I did do it with the other ones, but it was more challenging to do because I didn't have the frames down flat. I had popped up the whole thing. So that's on me. And also, if you're still listening at this point, God love you, because I do recognize that this is a longer video even for me, but hopefully you're having your Sunday coffee and, it isn't too terrible to sit here while we're doing this. So I went ahead and did the die cutting, and now here I'm kind of putting the whole thing together in order to, build up my focal point. I apologize that it's kind of down farther in the corner, but I will move. I am going to move it up. So here I'm just trying to find a little bit of balance with what I am creating. I know that I want to do kind of like bottom left, top right for the florals. And then here I am putting together, remember I told you those were a different kind of floral. They're like little cups, and then the little cups go underneath the green. And these are really great for filler flowers. You don't have to even color them. You could just do them as a white and maybe add a little bit of shading with the gray. But I think that would look, that's just a good flower. I know they're holiday flowers, but I don't think they look like holiday flowers here. So because I ended up putting the florals kind of up higher and not over the cow, I did end up going back in and adding some shading to the flowers just so everything was on the same page as far as intensity. And then once I got them all together and I was happy with the way they were looking, I glued them together until I had the whole bunch that I could just pick up with my tweezers. And you'll see some little blue ones fell off there, but that's okay. We'll get it. And then I'm going to glue these down here. Now, like I said, these are, holiday florals, but they don't look holiday at all. So you can really stretch those things, to get quite a bit out of what you have. I've had these for years. And actually I ended up getting them because Dawn was like, hey, these are super pretty. Here I was trying to trim off. I was trying to trim it off and I ended up taking off the whole piece of it. So that was my fault. Because I was trying to rearrange where it was showing, so that I could also get those little blue flower pieces in there. So, yeah, she is quite the character as far as her little personality goes. She is very much a girly girl though. She does like to play in the makeup. We only play in the makeup when we're doing dress up. And so she wants to do that as often as possible. Here for the center of the yellow flowers, I got out my like, what are they called? The fashion gems, fashion pearls from Spellbinder, and I used the gold ones to do the centers, and then the same thing with the white gel pen. I added some highlights to the cow's eyes, to some of the flowers. Then cotton ball here was put together in the same way. But this one is a little bit different because the first one we accent, so the very first one, Daisy, we didn't use any die cuts at all. The second one, we used die cuts to accent our card design. In this one, we're using our die cuts to actually accent the focal point, the pressed image. So we're building up those smaller flowers and smaller leaves to create an actual crown of flowers on Cotton Ball's little head here. So those are, 3 different ways that you can kind of use your press plates. As is, add some flowers, around your focal point, or incorporate your flowers into your focal point, which I love. I love all 3 looks. And so, you guys can, whichever one floats your boat and it's easy for you to try. Here, I did end up going back in with the black because I wanted some of that black, like their eyes and things, to be darker. So I decided to stop being scared and just do it. And then here is where I went back in and added that white gel pen. I do think it's a little bit more effective on the other image because that craft was glued down flat, but it was what it was. For the sentiments on these 2, I went with the Home Sweet Home on Cotton Ball, same as with the Farm Sweet Farm on the little pig. And then the other one is more of like a black one, and it says live like someone left the gate open. So that one is the only one that was just a little bit different, but I think that I think they're all really great. I think they're super fun. I was so excited that Justine asked me to join. I hope that this inspires you to kind of get out your butter press images and use them, or incorporate your dies into your stamped images a little differently. Don't forget about that buy one, get one free sale. It's through the 8th. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.